If you already know MySQL, Excel formulas won't feel so foreign. Let me show you 7 direct translations. We'll use the same data set in Excel, but I'll also show you the MySQL queries so you see the connection. The logic is the same, but different syntax. Once you know MySQL, you can also learn Excel. Let me show you how. Hello everyone, welcome back to Prompting Process, where we upskill with confidence, one tool at a time. If you've ever worked with MySQL and then switched over to Excel, you've probably noticed something. The logic is actually the same. Today I'll show you 7 Excel functions that feel just like MySQL commands side by side. By the end of this video, you will not only see the similarities, but also learn how to apply them in real-world analysis using our sample product dataset. So this is what we'll learn today. I'll introduce you to my SQL concept, and I'll show you the Excel equivalent formulas. Then I will explain the similarities. Let's go. We start with select in MySQL, which also does the same thing as filter in Excel. Now, in MySQL, select is like the butter and bread. It lets you pull out rows and columns, and with the where function, you can filter to just what you need in the table or in the cells, respectively. Now, let's see an example. In this data set, I'm using the same data set for MySQL and Excel. Okay, here we want to pull out all the information that has to do with the northern region. So in Excel, we use filter the columns for north. In MySQL, we use select to do that. And you can see the filter and select in the yellow highlights. Then in the green highlights, you can see it pulled exactly the same thing from the columns in Excel and MySQL. The same thing was pulled using select in MySQL and filter in Excel. Now to look at it more closely, you can see they are the same thing which are pulled out. In Excel, we use filter to filter the columns and the rows, while MySQL will select from product table where region is equal to north. So, so it's just like SQL select where Excel is filter. It extracts the exact slice of data you care about. Now, in comparison, SQL uses select where to fetch the rows that meet a condition. In Excel, you use index for a single value which plays the same role. It extracts the subset of rows directly from your sheet. So let's move to the next one, which is case when is a logic and Excel if. Now, in MySQL, we often add conditions inside queries using case when. Is how we create new labels or categories. For example, uh, we select the product name and price. Okay. Now, case one, price. If the price is greater than 40, then it's high sale, else low, and that's category. Now you select this from products, which the function here is case 1. In Excel, we use the if function. If function does the same thing in Excel as case 1 does in my SQL. Here, in column D is price. If the value is greater than 400, Excel returns high, otherwise low. So my SQL case 1 logic translates perfectly into Excel's if function. They basically do the same thing. The logic is the same, just different syntax. And SQL case adds conditional labels at query time, while Excel's if function does the exact same thing row by row inside the sheet. So they are like twin in each two. So this is the same thing is given the same output, and you can see it closely from here. The if function does the same thing as the case when in my SQL. Now let's move over to the third one, which is join in my SQL and average if in Excel. Now, join in MySQL lets you bring data from two tables. It's like joining them, adding them together. A common example is adding summary stats back into the main table. In MySQL, you might write something like um, select product name, product category, product price, average category, and the rest of them. Now you want to join them to a different category. So it basically gives you, joins things together for you. Now in Excel, you can mimic that with average if, then you have the same output. Column C is category, column D is price. This formula says find all the rows where category matches C2, then average the prices. Now, the result is that each row gets the average price. Each row gets the average price of each category, uh, exactly like an MySQL join with a summary table. And as you can see, the result is 270 both in MySQL and in Excel. It gives you the same thing. And here, just to see it closely, we selected from category and from price to give you the average of 270. And the same with our SQL query, as you can see on the screen, gave you the same thing for the product toy. SQL uses a subquery plus join to merge summary values back into the main table. Now Excel achieves the same with a single average if. So the same logic, different syntax. Now let's go to average. Now we call it aggregate functions in MySQL. And MySQL gives us aggregate functions like average, sum, and count to summarize data across rows, which is basically the same for Excel. Now, um, let's say we select average, which is the price, and the sum, the unit sold. and count from the product. Now, of course, this I believe you have some knowledge about my SQL because we are not really learning that. We are just comparing both MySQL and Excel. So in Excel is nearly identical. And, if you want average, you enter average. If you want sum, you enter sum. If you want to count, you enter count. So SQL aggregates line up almost one to one with Excel built-in functions. So you can see it's the same thing because here we are looking for the average of the price, which is 280 in both my SQL and Excel. They are basically the same thing. The unit, the price, the average is 280 in both my SQL and Excel. To see clearly in Excel, we use the average function. In my SQL, we select average, then we indicate the table or the row, the sum, then count all from products. Then you get your exact 280, just like in Excel. And my SQL aggregates, it calculates across the entire table. So that's why you are seeing a single row here. It calculates everything in the table. And Excel does the same using built-in functions across ranges. So we go to the next one, which is group by in my SQL and SUMIF in Excel. One of my SQL most powerful tools is group by, letting you aggregate data across categories like region and some other things, which is Excel's version of SUMIF. Now, um, as you can see in the yellow highlights, SUMIF and group by. In my SQL, the sum, that's the units sold, we can see the in the screen. We selected the region, the sum of the units sold from the product table, and we grouped them by region. In Excel, the formula version is SUMIF. We sum it from the G column, which is region, and we put not, which is our condition. Then E, which is the unit sold. And the column G is region, E is unit sold. This is whenever region is equals to not, add up the units sold. Okay, now the result totals sale in the not region. Of course, doing this with a pivot table is equivalent of group by, but SUMIF is the quick formula based way to get the same result, which you can always also get with your pivot table. But for now, we are using the SUMIF function to get it. And you see, they are the same thing. Region, you can see them there. So north is 477, which is also the same thing with my SQL. Now, just to take a closer look, we'll see the same thing here. the SUMIF function for my Excel, and group by for my SQL. Now, SQL groups and aggregates in one step. Okay, that's why you can see them here on the screen. Then Excel can do this with a single function of the SUMIF function, or with a pivot table for more complex grouping. When you want to do complex analysis, you can always use your pivot table, but if it's just something quick and simple, you can use the SUMIF function to get your results. Anyway, so that is that. And we come to order by and sort. Now, in my SQL, order by lets you control the order of results. The order of results, um, ascending or descending, any one you choose, which in Excel sort lets you do the same thing, order by and sort. Now, in my SQL, we select product, order by the description. Then in Excel, we use sort. The column, the column 4 is price, and -1 means descending, sorry, descending, not description. This sorts the entire table by price from highest to lowest. Okay, so we are doing descending order, and it's it's sorting the whole condition that was given. Now, my SQL uses order by with ascending or descending order, while Excel uses sort with the column index or order flag. Now, finally, we have the distinct for my SQL and unique for Excel. Now, the distinct function removes duplicates. Okay, for example, select distinct from distinct category from product. In Excel, the function is called unique. Now in Excel, you can see column C is category. The formula pulls out each unique category name only once, just like distinct. Now this is super handy when you need a clean list without repeats. It's just like removing duplicates. Okay, now you can see the uniqueness of it. You can see the categories: office, toys, clothing, furniture, and electronics. It sorts them out for you. And here, just at a glance, you see all the categories you have in your data. Now, SQL distinct and Excel unique, they do both the same thing, and they strip out duplicates. So that is that. So in closing, 7 functions that work just like SQL commands. We have select and filter. They do the same thing in their individual uh, tools. Case where if does the same thing. Join and average if they are twins. Aggregate in my SQL, which is the same as sum, count, and average. We call them aggregate functions. Then we have the group by, which in Excel is SUMIF. And of course, you can use the pivot table when you have more complex data. Then the order by and sort in Excel, and distinct and unique. The, the key takeaway is if you know MySQL, Excel will just feel like home. And if you know Excel, MySQL will make a lot more sense. So now you know that if you have idea of how to use each or one of them, you can. The logic is the same, just different syntax. Takeaway: if you know MySQL, Excel will feel like home. And if you know Excel, MySQL will make a lot more sense. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you would like me to cover more MySQL to Excel translations or just any other thing between the two. See you in the next one. Bye. Have a pleasant day.